Well, hello and welcome to Solar Alberta's 2024 Solar Show, our 10th annual. This session is called Recruitment and Hiring in the Renewables Sector. Please note that we have enabled closed captioning for this presentation. You can turn the captioning on in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. My name is Heather McKenzie, and I am the Executive Director at Solar Alberta. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that I'm hosting you today from Amiskwaciwaskahegan, also known as Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is located on Treaty 6 territory and the homelands of the Métis Nation. Treaty 6 territory is the traditional gathering place and home of many Indigenous peoples, including the Papaches, Nehewak Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux, nations whose ancestors have cared for and nurtured these lands since time immemorial. We were delighted to have so many people register for this week and this event in particular. To start, we'd like to thank Enbridge for sponsoring the 2024 Solar Show as a whole, as well as Kubi Energy and Lakeland College for sponsoring this exciting session today. We're happy and grateful to have them as sponsors. Today we will be hearing from Alicia Couteau and Ahmad Ghafouri. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer period in which you can all participate. We will be using Zoom Q&A for questions rather than the chat box, so please enter your questions in the Q&A section. Also, please click on the little thumbs up symbol to upvote questions that you like. The entire session will wrap up in an hour and a half. We're going to be recording this session and making it available on our YouTube channel following the show. I'd like to encourage you all to check out our online trade show during the week. We have listed on this slide and in the chat all of the wonderful organizations who are participating. To view their exhibitor booths, which include a listing of key solar-related services, contact info, and video introductions, please click on the link in the chat. Before we move forward, we're going to do a quick poll to get a sense of who we have joining us today. Please take a minute to answer the question popping up on your screen now. And while some are still doing the poll, I encourage you to also take a minute to pop your name, land acknowledgement, and any contact info you're comfortable sharing in the chat now and throughout the event so that others can look you up on LinkedIn or email you and you can start to get connected. All right, thanks very much for participating in the poll. Let's get a look at the results. Wonderful, 65% solar industry professionals, not surprised. This one is in large part for you. Lots of solar curious folks though, and I'm also not surprised by that because there's going to be a lot of information here that's relevant to people from all walks of life and some students in the house as well. Thank you for that. Also glad that you're participating in other events this week and excited about them. Thank you, folks. Now, just to share a little bit about who we are. Solar Alberta is now in its 33rd year of operation. We're a nonprofit society that is dedicated to accelerating Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. We do so by advocating, educating, and serving as an industry and community hub for solar energy. Our membership is made up of over 760 individuals and 170 businesses. We also have approximately 21,000 followers on social media and through our newsletter. We provide a number of services, including managing a solar directory through our website. You can see a screenshot of the directory here on this slide and a link to it in the chat. In addition to our website services, we run a number of educational programs, as well as in-person and online networking events. Please note that recordings of all our previously recorded solar show and seminars can be found on our YouTube channel. This spring, we'll once again be running a number of online courses and for solar industry professionals or those transitioning into the sector. Our courses are online Tuesday and Thursday evenings on 3 to 5 nights over 2 to 3 weeks. The first up is Economics of Grid-Tied Solar PV. You can register for all of our courses at the link provided in the chat. And we're also offering a new Buy 3 Get Codes 3 bundle, codes for free bundle. So that's electric codes for solar PV. This bundle includes the 4 technical courses that we offer. The link to purchase the bundle is also available in the chat. Recordings of these courses are available for sale alongside our paid workshops in the solar training videos section of our website. With respect to our advocacy work, we have a number of different campaigns running right now, which include template letters that you can use to contact decision makers. Please send letters requesting the Canada Greener Home Grant be refinanced, requesting an end to the provincial moratorium on renewable power plants, and requesting a number of supports for solar and energy efficiency upgrades to homes and businesses in Alberta. We also have free Rise Up for Renewable lawn signs available for pickup in 11 municipalities around Alberta. Please click on the link in the chat to access all our templates and make a sign order today. Now that you know a little about us, just want to take this opportunity to encourage you to join as a member. Membership is only $35, and this week you can purchase an individual or student membership with a 20% discount. I should say this week only. The link to become a member is also being placed in the chat. On April 24th, we'll be hosting our AGM. I just want to invite you all to sign up as members, attend, and elect your new board. There are several vacancies to fill on the board this year. If you are interested in applying, you're welcome to do so through our website until February 29th. With your help, we're recognizing longtime dedicated contributors to solar in Alberta by gifting them a free lifetime Solar Alberta membership. Please consider becoming a member and nominating the solar champion in your life for this award. We'll be accepting nominations until April 3rd. And the award recipients will be announced at our AGM. And very pleased to announce our first ever Solar Alberta Diversity Scholarship. This scholarship is intended for equity deserving individuals. Through this scholarship, we're seeking to promote inclusivity, amplify historically marginalized voices, and encourage diverse participation in the solar and solar-related sector. We will be awarding $2,000 to one equity-deserving individual registered in an Alberta training program that aligns with our mission. We'll be accepting applications until April 30th. Eligibility details on the scholarship application are available by clicking on the link in the chat. And we're very thankful to Enbridge for sponsoring this scholarship. Finally, we ask that you consider participating in our 50-50 raffle, which is up above $2,300 already. The raffle ticket sales will close on tomorrow, Friday, and I'll be doing the draw live at 5 p.m. during our Solar and Friends mentoring and networking event. Additionally, please consider donating through the crowdfunding link in the chat. The Government of Alberta is matching all donations made through this link. And now, I'm delighted to get this session underway by introducing our speakers for today. Alicia Couteau is the Venture Manager of Energy and Clean Tech at Innovate Calgary. In this role, she helps entrepreneurs and innovators in the energy sector to launch and grow their ventures. Additionally, her recruiting and hiring experience spans nearly a decade in former roles, including working with solar, engineering, procurement, and construction companies, and being a part of the hiring team during her time on the board at Solar Alberta. She hired me. Alicia is also a sessional instructor at Lakeland College, where she teaches about sustainability in the built environment, including residential energy efficiency and green building practices. Her educational background is in renewable energy technology, and she also holds a Master of Sustainability in Energy Security from the University of Saskatchewan. Welcome, Alicia. Thanks for coming back and joining us at another solar show. And Ahmad Ghafouri is an experienced executive with significant background in the renewables industry, as well as the power, mining, and hydrocarbon sectors. He holds a PhD from the University of Alberta with specific focus on the economics of renewable energies. He has consulted governmental, industrial, and private entities towards developing their renewable energy programs and successfully executed major projects from initial concept to completion. Ahmad is passionate for sustainable growth and inclusive prosperity. As the world in general and Alberta goes through the energy transition phase, the magnitude and complexity of developments are increasing by many-fold. Ahmad possesses the large-scale execution, expertise, and macro development vision for a successful transition to a greener future, and he also serves on our board currently. Welcome, Ahmad. We're so pleased you could join us today, and I really appreciate you both taking over the presentation from here. I'll look forward to seeing you both in the Q&A after. Turning the mic over to you, Alicia.
Thanks, Heather. So in our presentation today, we'll take a deep dive into various tools and techniques for enhancing your company's hiring and recruiting processes. We'll start by discussing how to draft the perfect job description. Then we'll shift into how to nail the interview process. And finally, we'll review how to cultivate a good relationship with your employees, which, as we all know, will help with retention and reducing the amount of time and energy spent on recruitment and hiring. Before we begin, it's important to acknowledge that people working in the renewables sector or hoping to transition into it may hold many unique identities. Because of this, some people with intersecting equity-deserving identities related to race, class, sexuality, and gender often experience more barriers in the renewable energy sector involvement than others. So we'll be weaving reflections of this concept of intersectionality throughout our presentation.
Right. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for attending this webinar. Before I start talking about recruitment, I just want to address the massive bruise I have on my face and the red eye. It's due to an incident I had playing soccer on Sunday night. It was a big blow, but thankfully everything is still working and just needs to wait for the swollenness to subside. Talking about recruitment again, at Solar Alberta, we recommend you making the recruitment process as open, transparent, as fair as possible. Again, when you're small and growing up, it might be make sense to hire family and friends, people you trust, and again, be flexible on the qualification. But as you grow, again, you definitely need to attract the right candidates that fit the jobs and the positions you're looking for. And then given that most renewable companies in Alberta, and for that matter in North America, on a growth trajectory, it's really important that you have a established hiring process early on and scale it up as you grow. Before start looking for a perfect person and posting job openings, it's really important for you to draft a clear and concise job description. Think about who you want, what you want, what that person is going to do in your organization, and how it's going to fit within the rest of the team that you have. Again, job title, any absolute requirements that you have, whether it's residency, hours of work, certain qualifications, the skill sets you need, responsibilities, compensation, and again, methods to apply are all things that you need to be aware of, and then again, put them in your job position. Transparency with prospective employees and the applicants is very important to build the trust. And again, that word of mouth that carries on in the industry about how you conduct your hiring practices and your business is going to be really, really beneficial to you, and is going to save time and energy in again, trying to attract talent, and negotiate with them, and following and later on onboard them into your company. Again, the more prep time you have at the moment, at the earliest stages, and the more transparent you are, again, gives you a better chance of finding the right talent. And again, as we discussed earlier, is when you're drafting that job description, think about how that position fits in within the broader organization that you have. What is that you're looking for from a candidate? A very important thing, what is that you're offering them as far as enriching their life and again, their work. If you've got multiple staff, big group within your company, again, we recommend you include as many people as you can within your company in drafting that process. It helps you, again, adds more eyes in that position, but also brings their perspective into that position and how that position overlaps with their duties. So when you're onboarding a new staff, you won't have as much resistance. You actually have people welcoming them and trying to help you with onboarding that candidate within your organization. But we could go to the next.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. So let's take a look at an example. So you'll want to start with a job title. The job title will be the first impression for not only the job posting itself, but also for your organization. It can significantly impact the type of people who apply to the job. So this decides if the person will continue reading the job posting or not. You will want to ensure that the job title is accurate, descriptive, and matches industry trends. For example, if you want someone who can operate relatively independently, then you may want to include terms such as lead, manager, or director in the title. Otherwise, you might have folks applying for the job who need more support than you can provide. Likewise, if you want someone to work in a more supportive and highly managed capacity, then you might consider language such as assistant in the job title. So when creating the job title, you'll want to avoid gender bias language. So for example, especially working in the renewable sector and solar specifically, words like journeyman have been used for many years. But nowadays, they'll be likely immediately send the message that your company is not keen on women or non-binary folks joining the team. So as society is evolving, we're starting to see more companies use language that's more inclusive, such as the term journey person. By changing this, it's an easy switch that makes people feel more welcome to apply. And it also broadens the pool of applicants, and that's always a good thing.
But when it comes to specific requirements of the job, again, like the expected location of the residence, the hours of work, things like that. Again, those that are very important for you, and it's specific to that position. We recommend you putting it right up on top. So, and again, maybe even have checkboxes there for things that are non-negotiable. And again, that helps makes again clear to candidates what is that you're looking for, but also eliminates the unnecessary applications, and then again saves you time in future in trying to again go in and screening those applicants. Again, it's important that reminder here for you to attract as wide of a pool as possible to be again, gender neutral in the language you use. Again, man hours is a very common word that we use in the industry, and again that we're trying to essentially stay away and move on to using hours of work or labor hours or direct hours or things like that. Again, that allows a wider pool of applicants to sympathize and again see you as a desired place of work.
Next, you'll want to provide an overview of your organization. By outlining your organization's mission, vision, values, and culture, potential candidates can decide if they are in alignment with your organization. By including this section, it's likely only those with similar values will apply, and you can avoid issues like mission creep down the road. It's important to ensure the values of the employees align with the organization so that a great organizational culture can be formed. That being said, don't be afraid to hire someone who might challenge you to improve your culture. This is also a good place to mention your environmental, social, and governance goals, or ESG, as well as your equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts, which are also known as EDI. So your efforts or commitments. You'll notice this example in the job description that Solar Alberta mentions being an equal opportunity employer and a member of the Alberta Living Wage Network.
Perfect. The next step, you would like to talk about, again, in broader term, who you are as an organization and how this position fits in within that organization. Talk about the role. Again, if there's a specific projects you're looking at, if there's again geography that you're looking at, talk about the interactions this position is having with the other disciplines within your company, with the outside parties that you may be dealing with. Again, provide that, again, 1 or 2 paragraph overview of what this role is about.
In the position responsibilities section to follow, you'll want to provide clear expectations about what the new employee will be responsible for within the organization. You want to make sure you use action-oriented verbs that describe the duties of the role. It's important to strategically organize the responsibilities based on importance and ensure that they are descriptive as possible. Ultimately, for transparency's sake as well, for easing your administrative burden, it's ideal if this sector mirrors the responsibilities, if this section mirrors the responsibilities you outline on a subsequent employment contract. A clear and concrete list of responsibilities will ensure that job seekers and your organization are not misaligned in terms of expectations and will enable you to hold the person you hire more accountable down the road.
Once you have outlined the responsibilities and then of the position, it is normal to dive into the qualifications that you're looking in a typical candidate for that role. Again, it could be education, training, certificates they have, actual hands-on experience they have, skills, soft skills, hard skills, or any physical or mental abilities that the position requires. When you're going through these and developing these qualifications that you're looking for in candidates, make sure to distinguish between the minimum requirements that are absolutely necessary to properly perform the job and the preferred requirements. And again, on minimum requirements, on the absolute must, again, you tend to be not too flexible because they're just required to be performing to the job. Again, if you're looking for a solar installer, again, you're looking for someone that is comfortable working at height, again, has some fall protection training and certifications, again, are good with, have experience working with construction tools and equipment, and are somewhat familiar with the national building codes or electrical building codes, if you want to be very specific. Keep in mind, even for some of these minimum requirements, there could be an overlap, and if they don't have the education that you're looking for, they might have had additional years of experience that would compensate for that. So there is a bit of flexibility inherent in that. However, when it comes to preferred requirements, that is where you're flexible, and again, you could compensate one qualifications over another, again, when the candidates, when the applications come in and you're reviewing the applicants. Again, if you look at the examples that are for a Solar Alberta job description, we often say post-secondary degree or diploma in a related field is preferred. A combination of education and equivalencies will also be considered. Again, it's also good to allow the candidates to tell you while they don't have a certain qualifications, why they think they're still qualified to perform the job based on other skill sets and qualifications they may have. Again, if at the other end, don't be too flexible in hiring someone, because at the end of the day, they may not be able to do the job as efficiently, as properly as you would like, and you're doing yourself and your organization a disservice. It's also important to be clear on the specific language skills you need. Again, we are an immigration-based country. We get a lot of newcomers that come in. Again, it's very important, as good and qualified they are, again, to specify if you need specific verbal or written communication skills that your employees you would like them to have, to mention it there. It also, in general, if your position requires, say, written correspondence with outside parties, it's good to mention that and be very specific about the language skills you need the applicants to have.
Yeah, and a little tidbit for any of the students on the call, having those fall protection certificates, if you're going to work in solar, looks really great on a resume. So this a little side note there. So for compensation, let's talk about compensation details. This is where you can showcase what you have to offer to folks joining your workforce. It's important that you're transparent, realistic, and honest in this section about what you have to offer your employees. Pay transparency is particularly important to ensure you don't end up with gender pay gap at your company, and to save both you and prospective employees a lot of time and energy. Offering stable, permanent employment rather than short-term contracts will also result in more people wanting to join your team. It also makes it more likely that you'll see a more diverse range of applicants. Often, equity-deserving candidates find it too risky to gamble on contractual or part-time employment. If you're drafting this section and you are managing your organization in general, to attract and retain excellent and diverse employees, you should also aim to ensure maximum flexibility for positions. For example, if possible, give folks time in their workday to pick up and drop off their kids from school. Another important tool to attract and retain workers is to pay a living wage to all staff right out of the gate. Alberta's Living Wage Network is one source you can turn to for determining a living wage, and it will differ depending on where your staff are located in the province. offering benefits or cash in lieu, ample paid vacation, paid sick leave, and personal leave for doctor's appointments, and the like will demonstrate that you care about your staff in mind, body, and spirit, and that you want new staff who are differently abled or who have extended family needs to join your team. All business members of Solar Alberta are in fact welcome to join the group health benefits plan as well, and that should make it easier to get things set up. And of course, consideration should also be given to implementing a retirement fund, professional development supports, and or including mention of parental caregiver leave benefits in this section as well. You may also feel the desire to oversell your company. Be sure to be as realistic as possible about what you have to offer so that you don't offer or establish unrealistic expectations and leave employees feeling misled.
Okay, so we're almost done with drafting the job description, and then the next step and the final step is to provide instructions to applicants where to apply and how to apply. Again, in our experience with Solar Alberta recruitments in the past, we've had quite a few issues with this that we ended up deciding to put it not just at the bottom, but also at the top of the position description as well. Again, you would be talking about if there's a specific, again, online application form you would like them to fill, if there's an email address you'd like them to submit their documentation, if there's any additional documents you would like them to send in addition to their resume, you will highlight it there. Again, we recommend asking for cover letters. It serves two purposes. Number one, it gives you an insight into the applicants, how they write, what their thought process is, why they think they are qualified with this work, what is that they're going to bring to the job, and hopefully they also indicate what is that you're looking from this job, from yourself and from the position itself. The second benefit of a cover letter is weeds out the serial applicants where they fire up emails without really reading through the position and understanding if that's a good fit for them. Again, helps you in screening process down the road. It's also a good idea to talk about the timelines. If you're going to hire within the next 2 weeks, or if there's a position that you're looking down the road in a few months to fulfill, and also talk about the interview process and the onboarding process if you've got multiple steps involved. So the candidates have an understanding of if things work out and they are finally selected, what is the process for them and what sort of timing they're looking at to essentially start with you.
Now that you've drafted the perfect job description, you need to share it far and wide to attract the right people. So we recommend adding the posting to your own website, then sharing it to social media and various job boards. Did you know that if you are a Solar Alberta business member, you can share your job posting on the Solar Alberta website, in Solar Alberta's weekly social media jobs roundup, and in the Solar Alberta monthly newsletter? With a following of over 20,000 people, Solar Alberta is happy to share your job openings. Campus recruitments, local newspapers, and immigrant serving agencies are also great options for sharing a job ad. As mentioned as well with the social media, LinkedIn is a really great tool to spread your job posting far and wide.
Okay, now talking about the screening process, again, the position has been posted. You've received hopefully many applicants and applications, and you're going through them and essentially shortlisting them for either onboarding or interviews. Before starting the screening process, again, it's important for you to have an evaluation criteria based on the descriptions you've drafted. Again, just shortlist what is exactly you're looking at these applicants. It's very important that you treat all applicants and applications fairly. It does two things. Again, one is you're fair to everyone as a good business practice. That fairness is very important, but also you won't unintentionally screen someone that would have been beneficial with you. Again, and we're all biased, and there's many types of bias that we have, and many of it is natural. But you would like to essentially eliminate the role of bias while you're reviewing the applications. The couple ways you could essentially minimize or eliminate bias is one, you could Again, eliminate names. Again, if you've got a larger organization and with many applications, again, you could come in, remove names from applicants, from applications or resumes, and put identifiers with them. Again, we all intentionally and unintentionally attribute certain thoughts to when we see a name. Again, you could do that. Second one you could do is involve multiple people in the screening process. Again, you could do that. The first person narrows it down to a shorter list, and as it goes through the chain, it gets shorter and shorter. What it does, it tends to essentially relying on the first person doing the right work, because again, that seal gets smaller and smaller. A better way in my mind is allow the same, again, 2 or 3 people you have in the screening process, screen all applications, and then come back and compare your short list. That would ensure that, again, you look at the common names that may pop up in there, and those are the ones, again, you'd be, again, they'll be more attractive and more suitable for your position. It also, again, important when you're reviewing the applications, you could do 2 ways. One is look for clues as why that applicant is not suitable, or look for clues as why that applicant is suitable. Again, that positive look or the negative. And in my experience, when I'm looking for clues why they are suitable, I tend to be more flexible and again, and have a more open mind in shortlisting the candidates. It's also important when you're looking at newcomers and international applicants, again, some of the credentials they have or the experiences they have, it may not directly translate to what you're looking for in title and description. But it is worthwhile digging a bit more, maybe speaking with the applicants or again, people that locally that may be able to comment on it, to see how that is, again, that comparison to a degree or a skill set that you're looking for. Again, it helps you, again, attract the right person and not unnecessarily screen them out. One other thing you want to look is, again, employment gaps are a good tell in the history of folks, what they've been doing, and it could be positive or negative. Sometimes it could be due to unemployment, change of careers, or many other, again, reasons, but sometimes it could be a legitimate reason. Again, a word event, if they're immigrating, if they're changing cities, if they're, again, caregiving, if they've had children, again, those are all legitimate reasons to have employment gaps. So before jumping to a conclusion, it's worthwhile spending a bit more time digging and finding out what that gap is for. The last piece is that for all of us who applied is just don't ghost applicants. Again, either be clear in your application that you're only going to get to certain applicants that are shortlisted and not everyone. And again, if that's what you do, then definitely make sure you go back to the shortlisted applicants, absolutely to the ones you've interviewed and contacted in the process, and let them know that they have not been, again, successful. And it also helps them if you go the extra step of letting them know why they were not again, good candidate for you. You can talk about the positive things that you thought they brought, but also the criteria that they did not, again, meet for you to select them.
All right, so let's talk about the interview stage now. So as you move into this stage, remember that's important to respect the candidate. You want to treat them as if they are a potential customer. The 3 or 4 people who are involved in the initial screening process should also be involved in the interview process. If your staff contingent is small, you might need to pull in a board member, external consultant, or someone else that you think will help you flesh out your hiring team. If your final decision goes to a vote, we recommend you remove anyone who is friends or families with the candidate. This will be better for the organization and likely better for the personal relationship too. When you offer the interview, be clear about the interview process. And then when you're in the interview, reiterate that process. This will help reduce jitters and help those who do not have traditional job experience and or might not be familiar with the Canadian style of interviewing as well. We encourage you to schedule interviews at times that are convenient for the candidate to increase accessibility and get their focused attention. For example, over the lunch hour or the late afternoon, offering an option for candidates to interview virtually is also a great way to increase accessibility. Unless you're providing compensation for the interview time, try to spend the candidate's time wisely. Be sure to give each candidate the same time and attention in the interview process, so you're not biased in the process. As with the initial job post drafting, employees who will be working closely with the new hire are a valuable asset also in the interview process. These employees have an in-depth understanding of what is needed to be successful in the role, and by including them in the interview room, you can get a sense of the synergy between your current workforce and the new candidate. This is a practice that Solar Alberta has adopted, and it's resulted in much better workplace culture. Throughout the interview process, it's important to remember that cultural norms differ. Communication styles, eye contact, and gestures vary from culture to culture. You should not assess candidates on these, only their ability to meet the needs of the role. Further, keep in mind that some people are uncomfortable with promoting themselves. As such, they might qualify their responses, and interview process might make them feel a bit uncomfortable. So at the end of the interview, you should outline the next steps of the process and the timeline for when the candidate should hear back from you. Once again, please don't ghost unsuccessful candidates after the interview. Show them respect by following up with them after the interview and let them know if they have been successful or not.
As for the actual interview questions, it's beneficial if you have a set of standard questions relevant to the position that you're asking all your interviewees. Again, that helps you in essentially in ranking and comparing them to each other, and again, highlighting the standouts. When going through the questions, again, we recommend the questions to be, again, cross-refer to the job descriptions and requirements for the positions you have highlighted. Again, an example is that the job description says previous experience, again, required working effectively and efficiently in an online environment. So again, you could ask the question, we are a remote working organization and our employees are required to essentially work from home or remotely and be administratively independent and be able to work with these certain applications. Can you tell me in your past experience if you've done anything like that and how effective you've been in working remotely and what sort of challenges you've seen? Again, that helps you give an insight into the comfort the applicant has, again, beyond their skills to actually to perform the work. How are they well with working with technology and applications and equipment that is necessary? It's again, it's a well-structured questions that again provides context why the question is relevant and what is that it's an important thing that you're looking into the applicant's previous experience. Again, it's a theme that again you want to be as cultural and then gender neutral as possible. Again, to be able to narrow down to the skill sets and the qualifications we're looking at the applicants. The other important thing is how throughout the interview process, finding out how this application, as skillful and experienced as they are on a personal level, how do they fit within your company culture? Again, you could talk about your mission, vision, and then value statement, and ask their opinion, and again how they see it, how they align with it, and how they see themselves fit in it. Again, as an example, we could see that our organization vision is to put a solar panel on every single home in Alberta. Again, do you think that's feasible, and is it worthwhile, and is it even important to you? Again, if that's what is important for your company, again, getting that response from the applicants would give you a better idea whether that there's a fit in there. The other important questions is talking about the specifics of the work term. Again, being the start date that you're looking, the duration, if it's a term contract, the duration of the position, the working hours, if there's a specific set of hours you want them to be there certain days of the week. You talk about overtime in there and whether they're required, if there's after hours availability, all those details. You talk about compensation, what is their expectation is, what is that they're looking for that work. Make sure you discuss all of that in the interview. So again, saves yourself time down the road when you make an offer and going back and forth in documentation and negotiation. It's very important to ask these targeted questions to all applicants. And again, as I started saying, just it gives you a same gauge that you rank and compare candidates to one another. And a very, very important thing again is to allow the candidates to ask you questions in the end, and give them more than 2 or 3 minutes. Give them 5-10 minutes. Again, plan your interview session so that they have the time in the back end. And for me, it is very important that a candidate has questions and has relevant questions, because it tells me, one, have they researched you as the person interviewing them, or have they researched your company, the position? Are they coming in with an open mind, and are they invested to understand if it's a fit, if it's a part of their career progress? Those again, you'll find again very good insights into if that candidate is a fit within your organization, or if just someone that is looking for a job that pays the bill. Again, nothing wrong with that, but if it's important to you to find again certain qualifications, soft skills, again that allowing the interviewee to ask you questions will give you that information.
So congratulations, you've hired a new employee. So hopefully the contract process was a breeze, because you had such wonderful and transparent job descriptions that you could port most of it over into your standard employment contract. So after the hire, there are a few things you'll want to consider as you build working a relationship with your new employees. First, discuss employment terms regularly with your staff. A routine workload review can help resolve work-life changes before they lead to undue stress or employees jumping ship. Equity-deserving demographics are most likely to need periodic contract adjustments, as their lives are often less predictable and they often have more external demands on their time than those with relatively more power and privilege in society. We recommend providing opportunities for your staff to network, gain exposure, learn, build capacity, and advance. Ultimately, professional development funds and financial supports for staff to attend networking events are great ways to accomplish these goals. However, often establishing funding for these types of opportunities is a barrier for organizations. An alternative solution is to consider or enable employees to attend courses and workshops, or to participate on related external boards and task force while on the job. Third, provide opportunities for internal advancement. The more the members of your team feel like they're valued, the more likely they'll stick around, and the more likely it is that they'll recommend your company to their networks.
Well, that's a wrap for our presentation. But before we move on to the Q&A section, just want to highlight that we have a specific section of our website dedicated, again, at Solar Alberta, dedicated to helping employers be more inclusive. As you're likely well aware, the renewable workforce in Alberta, and maybe even across Canada, it doesn't quite reflect the general population and demographic representation that we have in Canada. Again, although we tend to do better to other sectors and industries as far as inclusivity and diversification, but there's still a lot, a lot fewer women, people of color, disabled folks, and again, in general, equity-deserving demographics that we could find in general public. They're not quite represented in our workforce. Again, as evolution has taught us, the more diverse the gene pool, the higher the chances of survival. Again, the same rule applies to our organization, our companies. Again, as diverse as we are, from people of different backgrounds and different skill sets, again, all still suitable to perform the job. Again, that's the number one thing. But again, we would like to be as diverse as we want, again, for the betterment of the company's success in the long run. Again, this section of the website gets updated very frequently. And again, we are looking forward to hear from you. Again, you may have other resources that you've come across. You may have your own experiences that you'd like to recommend to the rest of the community that we are in. So please send them to us, and we look forward to any ideas you have, whether big or small. Again, it all adds up in the long run.
Excellent. Well, with that, we'd love to open up the floor to questions and discussion.
Great. Thank you both very much. I am going to open up the Q&A here and remind folks that you need to put your questions in the Q&A box rather than the chat, because I'm going to just pull from there. So while you populate your questions for our presenters today, I might just kick things off with a couple of questions myself, because I always like to pick your brains, and you know that. So yeah, I guess I was wondering if each of you could maybe give an example of, a hiring process that you've experienced, that you went through, that you thought went really well, like a best practice, and either from the hiring perspective or from being hired, and where they really demonstrated the qualities that you look for. I wonder if the Q&A box may not have been enabled because I don't see any other questions coming in. So I'll just flag that for Mackenzie in case that's an issue. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear from some of your personal experiences. So if you could share those, please. Alicia, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Heather. So I know for myself, something that I have found really valuable is allowing the candidate space at the beginning of the interview to just kind of introduce themselves. It really helps to break the ice. I know in previous experience that I've had, you come and you have the standard set of questions like, when was the time that you had conflict at work and how did you deal with that? And that kind of can make nervous energy, because then you're like, oh gosh, I got to think about something and give a really good example. So just allowing them the space at the beginning of the interview to introduce themselves, maybe tell people a little bit about themselves. It might give you some insight into how they operate and they work. So as an example, one time we had an interview where there was a woman who was born and raised in Mexico, did not grow up speaking English, and at 17 moved to the United States, taught herself how to learn English, and slowly worked her way up through a company. And I went, wow, this woman's story is amazing because it shows resilience, it shows, strength, it shows she's not afraid, continuous learning and not afraid to put herself out there. So that really made me think she was a really valuable candidate, because I thought, well, she could definitely handle challenges. She's not afraid to, lean into, asking questions or learning new things. So, and it really just opens up that space to kind of break that ice and make people not feel like, oh gosh, the spotlight's on me and now I got to think of some really clever answer to that question. It just makes the process a bit more natural and casual, and you might actually get some real golden nuggets out of it that maybe you wouldn't have from a standard question and answer process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it. I always feel this pressure when I'm interviewing to get through, and frequently the first thing you cut is sort of that just general get to know you time, but obviously that could be the most valuable time that you're cutting. So that's really important perspective. Thank you. How about you, Ahmad? Is there any best practices that really have jumped out at you from personal experience on either side of the interview or hiring process?
Yeah, as Alicia was talking, I just kind of went through my own experience again. Funny enough, it happens in two occasions, again, over 20 years ago, when I just fresh out of school and I was applying again to many positions. I ended up again being shortlisted for the interview, and as I'm going through my education and the little experience I've had before arriving in Canada, the interviewer said, "You're not the right candidate for this position, and for these reasons. You're actually more qualified for this other thing that we have, and that we haven't posted." On the first occasion, they have not, again, we talked about what I'm better qualified for, but they did not have a need for it right away. But the hiring manager, which to this day I'm still a friend, again, I haven't worked with him at all, but every time we meet, again, we just reminiscent of that, the interactions we had. But the second one, luckily, they had a position open that wasn't advertised, and they put me in. Again, it just highlights to me that, again, be an open mind. Again, if a candidate is the right person, right qualification, but doesn't necessarily fit the actual that vacancy you have, don't close the door. Leave it open for the future again, and make sure that they see that feedback, that again, that positivity from you, that they when you need them, they're also available to come work for you. So that was something that again was a good lesson for me that I try to keep in mind when I'm talking to people about the potential vacancy.
Interesting. I think one of the challenges that some folks face in the renewable sector is that a lot of people are do-it-yourselfers. So a lot of them have come up through the ranks, they've kind of worked for themselves, they've been a contractor themselves. They haven't necessarily gone through a lot of interviewing processes themselves. So of course, when you draw on your own experience having been interviewed, then it would help you in the hiring process. But for someone who does DIY, which is a very Albertan thing to do it yourself, they're less experienced. And I know I fell victim to that in many ways because I frequently worked for myself. And then, it was a little intimidating going into my hiring process. So yeah, it's something that's probably a little bit unique to the renewable sector in Alberta, is a lot of folks hiring who maybe themselves haven't gone through a lot of hiring processes. Are there any other unique attributes? Maybe we'll start with you, Alicia, but I know both of you have experience outside of the renewable sector, but then also within the renewable sector. And is there anything that's like particularly unique that you never would have encountered in the other worlds you were in that you only discovered when you get into the renewable sector? Either things you need to screen for or unexpected things. For me, one of the big surprises when I took on this job was just how many people apply for jobs from around the world. I wasn't accustomed to that because I didn't realize that we were kind of the envy of many other jurisdictions in terms of our solar growth and our wind growth. And so people are watching us from everywhere. And so I had to start to be really explicit, like you have to be a resident of Alberta because I can't actually I don't have the capacity to support a resettlement process as an employer because we're a very small employer. Anything like that that's really unique, and almost by virtue of our rapid growth and development here that's happening in the solar and wind sectors? Alicia, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So much to unpack here. My brain is thinking, oh, I should have been writing notes down. So just to kind of expand really quickly on Imad's point, casting the net far and wide, especially as a growing business, like he mentioned, you might interview candidates that say apply for a project controls job or kind of some office administration opportunity. And then, they have marketing or they have content creation and they have event management. And you think, okay, well, maybe they're not the right fit for this job, but as our company grows, and especially if there's alignment, if you have candidates that come and say, I know so much about your organization, I'm really passionate about the work you're doing, maybe not be a fit here, but even 6 months or a year down the road, if something comes up, like, please keep me in mind. To your point, same thing has happened to me twice where I've gone in and interviewed for one role. They say you're not the right candidate for this role, but however, we have another opportunity coming up. Also for students, I know when I, previous to kind of coming into renewables, I actually worked with WestJet for 13 years and had lots of various experience there. I was a flight attendant, but I also worked in recruiting and training and marketing and finance and regular operations. So I kind of gathered a lot of different skill sets, we'll say, that were transferable skills. And so when I decided to go back to school to retrain in renewables, my immediate thought was, I really want to get involved in solar, but I know I'm not going to be the person lifting, modules onto a roof and doing the actual install. And, over the last 7 years, you kind of start to realize that there's so many different roles and needs: schedulers, project controls, project management, HR, marketing. There's so many different opportunities if you're really passionate about renewables and passionate about solar, but you don't really see yourself as, a skilled tradesman in that sense, or woman. So, going back to, I know I feel like I've got off topic with your question, if there's commonalities or differences. And I think just going back to that point, it doesn't matter what sector you operate in, finding people that are passionate about your mission and have that congruent alignment with, your values and how you want to operate as a company culture. Company culture is what will keep people around. It's why I stayed with WestJet for 13 years. They had really grown a wonderful company culture, and that was really important to me. And like I said, my personal values and missions kind of changed over the years because I thought, oh, well, I've just helped to put so many emissions into the air for a decade and almost a half. I have to karmically retribute this now by focusing my attention more onto renewables and energy efficiency and that kind of knowledge sharing. So I guess that would be my 2 cents to that, Heather.
Well, yes, and in your answer, you touched on something that is also what I've discovered quite unique in the renewable sector is a lot of people are transitioning in mid-career. And I know in our courses that we teach, I would say the vast majority of people coming through our courses at Solar Alberta are mid-career professionals making the shift. And sometimes it's because they're trying to build back their karma if they've been doing something that they feel is not great for the environment. But sometimes it's by necessity because their job is maybe no longer relevant and they're trying to figure out a new path here in this province. So definitely get a real mix of folks mid-career, and that's quite interesting. How about you, Amada?
Sorry, just
Oh,
to
yeah.
stop, Heather, really quick. I feel like we need to plug Lakeland College here because that was
Okay.
actually the just because they're the sponsor of this, and of course, you know, I am a sessional instructor there as well. You know, finding programs like that that enable you to be able to go back to school and still continue to work full time and be a parent. I know that was my situation, and it was invaluable to have access to all that knowledge and be able to kind of work it around my schedule, not necessarily, you know, have to be in a classroom setting from, you know, 9 till 12 on a Wednesday or, you know, 7 to 9 on a Monday night. So that big shout out to Lakeland College for that.
There's definitely some unique program options available nowadays for different lifestyles. And I'm really glad on our directory at our website, we do list a variety of post-secondary programs like Lakeland's that are really helpful to people who are mid-career as well. Not that we don't want to get them while they're young too. I think it's really exciting when 17, 18-year-olds jump right in with both feet. So that definitely inspires me, but we do have a unique demographic. How about for you, Ahmad? Anything quite unique in the renewable sector that you would say is quite different from the other spaces you've worked in over the years?
Yeah, the biggest, I wouldn't say shock, but it was, again, it was an eye-opening experience, was the culture of safety. And again, that, especially in Alberta, we are very hydrocarbon-based, heavy industrial-based in the again, economy, and they have a very, very robust health and safety standards. As you enter in as a newcomer or as a new employee to an organization, especially if you're, again, right out of school, this is your first career, you'll be amazed of how many safety trainings and safety requirements you have to go through before you're allowed to actually touch a tool or arrive on a job site. Again, industry could afford that. One is because, again, safety is important, but also they make quite a bit of money, so they afford to spend more on health and safety. On the renewable side, being a junior industry, and again, it's something that's been essentially surviving on the back of grants and government subsidies forever, and now slowly it's becoming independent and again, they've been economical. Safety tend to get not as much attention or investment in the hiring process. Now, in Alberta, if you are getting those mid-career or the senior people that are switching careers from oil, gas, or industrial into, you don't necessarily have to worry much because they come in with that background and experience in safety and importance of safety. But the renewable being less complex, and we tend to hire a lot more lower skill or again entry-level positions and grow them in our industry with the companies themselves. They don't have that exposure to importance of safety. It's still as important as any other industry. It's less complex, less many things that could go wrong or explode or break, but it's still, there's many fronts that could injure workers. So finding that balance of one being able, again, having an economical project to actually sustain the company, but also making sure you spend enough time in training your employees and enforcing the importance of safety.
Yeah.
In
well, that's particular. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Just as injuries pile up, two things happen. One is your insurance rate goes up. Second, again, you become, again, less reputable, and so you'll have the opportunities of finding more work and continuing work for your organization or yourself becomes less and less as you injure people or your employees.
Yeah, many reasons to care. And I know it's particularly important in Alberta because of our cold winters. Safety is not just about being up high, it's also about being up high in cold weather. And there are solar installers up on the rooftops in my neighborhood all winter long. And you can see them taking precautions. They are holding the ladders for each other. They've got their gear on. They're ready, and it's very comforting to see them take those precautions. And I wish everybody who was up on a roof in my neighborhood was taking those precautions. Because yeah, we do have the weather to contend with as well. We do have a couple questions coming into the Q&A. So as much as I would love to just keep picking your brains, I'm gonna defer to our audience first, and then if there's time for more of my questions after, I'll keep going. Dawn says, with Solar Alberta, is there a different hiring process for contract and staff resources? So apologies, but I think this is a question for me. So I will say we at Solar Alberta are very small. So we actually only have a staff contingent of 4 people, and together we're only really 3 full-time staff. And then we have contractors. We essentially have about 6 contractors, and 4 of whom are teachers. And so what we are doing is, we are standardizing that process. So when we look out for new teachers, we are using the same process for the contractors now as we would for hiring. We're just being very transparent about the type of program. So it's not an employee, it's a contractor. And you have to be really clear about that up front, not just for transparency, but actually because CRA, they'll come after you if you decide to bring on an employee and call them a contractor. So you actually need to do that by law. It's not just a custom here. So definitely, I recommend treating them the same, but being very transparent about it. Right now, that's our new practice. But I will admit that that's relatively new because we were so small that we previously, a lot of the people who worked here, who were contractors, were in many ways doing that as sort of in more of a voluntary or philanthropic way. So their pay was a little bit more of an honorarium and not necessarily as formal. So now that we're growing and formalizing, we're trying to put those standards in place, which I think Ahmad touched on at the very beginning. When you're small, you probably need to be flexible. And then as you grow, which most businesses in the solar sector do, you need to put some standards in place. Solar Alberta is a nonprofit though, so we are not growing at the same pace as our members. So my experience is going to be very different from Alicia and Ahmad's because they have seen more of the exponential growth that a lot of our business members are contending with. So it's a very different picture for our business members. While I might hire 1 new staff every year, they're probably on trying to onboard tons, which actually relates to the point you made, Ahmad, about how our members are having to bring in people who maybe don't have a huge amount of experience and are having to train them on the job. I don't have to do a lot of that at Solar Alberta because I have, the luxury of fewer hires and many options. But in the solar sector, the growth is so fast paced that you're having to do a lot of on-the-job training. And you can't necessarily expect that someone's coming in with all that experience. So hopefully that answers the question. I am curious though, for the 2 of you, if you've seen any different hiring practices for contractors as opposed to staff. I know we like to standardize that at Solar Alberta, but what has your experience been? And do you think that's a good thing to standardize, or do you think there are exceptions where you might do it a little differently? You want to touch on that first, Alicia?
Yeah, so I would also suggest anyone here that is, and I don't know, I guess I can't speak to what companies' preferences are because it'll differ and vary. So in my experience, especially in solar specific hiring, there's opportunities sometimes where you're going to scale a large scale solar farm, right? So you're going to need 40 guys on the job for 3 to 6 months. And so maybe identifying even candidates, like maybe creating a posting where you say employee, contractor. And so that expectation is set throughout the interview process that say, we're just going to retain you for the length of this job. If it goes well, then you'll have the opportunity to come back if we need additional support throughout our growth. But like I said, identifying those candidates that are really passionate about your company specifically, want to help support the growth of that company, their mission, the values all align with it. I would say from an employee aspect, having that flexibility. So maybe you are an electrician and you say, okay, well, I'll set up my own side business for the opportunity to be able to contract. However, if the right opportunity with the right company comes along and they've got a great benefits package, and maybe only a 4-day work week, and if they're being a contractor is like, it's a hustle. I won't lie. I've done it myself through my time working as a yoga instructor, right? So you're constantly got to be dealing with your own invoicing and your own kind of business taxing and all that kind of stuff. But there are definitely benefits to both, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Ahmad, anything to add to that?
Yeah, from an employer perspective, again, the process for us, again, wasn't any different. We've got a vacancy and we need to find the right person to fit that from a personality, team fit, and again, the experience and the skill sets we need. Whether it be on an employee or a contract, it's a form of an employment. Sometimes the more senior positions within the organization, we'd like them to be employee, we don't want them to be contractors. And sometimes, again, the applicants have a preference whether they'd like to be contractor, or again, depends on the benefits and if they've got coverage elsewhere. So as far as process, it's the same process. Again, that final paperwork that you negotiate and fill out might be, again, is different. The terms and conditions might be different, but the rest is the same.
I've certainly had a couple people apply on jobs with me, asking, would you consider a contractor for this position? I often say yes, but I do expect them to follow the same process. So if they're not writing a cover letter and they just send me their portfolio, to me, that's the same as someone just sending me a LinkedIn reference. Like, I still need you to actually demonstrate. In fact, if they're a contractor, I would actually expect a slightly higher level of application. I would expect a pitch. And so I would actually want to see, a proposal. If they didn't provide a full proposal and they just provided a cover letter, I'd still consider them. But it's interesting how sometimes contractors will apply and think that you should expect less of them as an applicant. And in fact, if you're not coming in as an employee, I will expect more of you. And the fact is, you'll need to demonstrate that you're running a legitimate business too, because I can't hire someone as a contractor who doesn't have a legitimate business. CRA requires that they have, a real, that they be real. So it's very interesting to discuss. Yes, you are being corrected in the chat, Alicia. 40 people, not 40 guys on the job, and I appreciate that. Thank you for calling us out on that. It takes a long time for us to adopt new language, and I know anyone like me who grew up playing soccer frequently has to check themselves when they say guys, but especially I've noticed, especially women and non-binary folks who are younger than me really don't identify with that term. And even though I identified with it as a soccer player, I'm having to really be respectful that not everybody does. So thank you for that.
I greatly appreciate checking me on that as well, because as a 90s kid, same thing, Heather, it's the vernacular, right? So it's retraining ourselves to be more cognizant of that. So thank you for whoever mentioned that in the chat.
Well, and we're absolutely capable of that. It does take practice and it does take people reminding us. And so, appreciate that. And that's part of the culture we're trying to build at Solar Alberta, is for us to just, hey, oh, by the way, you better watch that. Here we go. So I'm currently a student doing a postgraduate diploma program in renewable energy with about 6 to 7 years of work experience. What green skills can you recommend developing during my course duration so I'm job ready for the clean tech industry? Very good question. I've gone to you first a lot, Alicia, so I'm going to go to Ahmad first this time, and then you can build on him. And then I have one little observation to add at the end that I really had to learn this summer as part of a training program we were running. So Ahmad, do you want to kick us off there?
Yeah, I hope I understood the question properly. So again, when we talk the renewables, again, typically the majority of it is wind, solar, and battery storage. And again, if you're looking for certain skill sets, again, all three have heavy electrical and power engineering in common. So if you educate yourself on the specific design requirements or installation requirements, as again relates to the electrical aspect of it, you'd be it goes a long way in navigating the work that you'll end up doing, in my opinion. It also would be beneficial if you talk about, again, or educate yourself on the environmental aspects of these projects. Again, specifically, Alberta is very, very strong and what's the right word? Again, the Alberta Environment and Parks, or Wildlife and Parks, is very cognizant of the impact of these projects on the environment, and they have specific terms that they use and requirements that you have to meet. Again, as an everyday job, you may not necessarily have to do any of it or be responsible for it, but it helps you understand those requirements when you're leading a team, being cognizant of those that you might impact and essentially contravene the promise you've made to Alberta Environment and Parks. So again, those periphery skills or education training, in my mind, goes a long way.
Well, that's a very interesting point, and it's also interesting if you are an environmentalist and that's what's bringing you to the sector. It's also important to realize that not every company shares those values. Just because they're working in the renewable space doesn't always mean that they are environmentalists too. So you'll have to also screen for that. It kind of goes both ways. Hey, obviously, ideally, everyone in the sector would care about the environment, but unfortunately, not everybody does. Some folks, just like for some employees, some employers are just kind of there to pay the bills. So definitely have to kind of navigate that dynamic on both sides of the spectrum. So I appreciate you flagging that, Ahmad. It's a very important consideration.
Another thing that came to my mind is the pace of technology is so fast and rapid in the wind, solar, and battery, at least, is that it'll help you identify who the leading, want to understand the technology. Again, we drill down to the components that builds up that technology and where the advancements are, where that growth is. Things are getting larger in volume, but also in capacity. Who the leading suppliers are, again, being able to essentially identify, talk about various technologies, various suppliers that you see, the pros and cons of each one's offering. Again, the quality and cost for each is different. Everything is unique. So again, spending time and learning about those would also help.
And I know Solar Alberta is very installer heavy in our membership, but it is also important, as you mentioned, to acknowledge that there are suppliers here too who are also looking for staff. And I have talked to some folks who said, I was training in renewables, but I didn't realize I had to be an electrician to do solar. And so now I can't get an install job because I don't want to be an electrician. And I said, well, have you considered the suppliers? Because a lot of them don't require you to be an electrician. They just really appreciate your knowledge of the space. And we do have a number of suppliers, distributors as members on our directory. So definitely check those out if you're not keen on becoming an electrician or working in some of the project management or HR spaces that Alicia mentioned. Lots of possibilities, really. Alicia, do you want to touch on that? Green skills, what
Yeah. A perfect segue. So I'm glad Ahmad went first. Never stop exploring and learning. As he mentioned, the industry is constantly changing and growing and evolving. So that continuous learning is really important. I would say explore many different things. I know when I went back, I was so like, solar. It has to be solar. I don't care what capacity, but something to do with solar. And then one of my very last classes I took in the Lake Lamb program was looking at, which is the class I'm now teaching, not to put in another plug, but looking at green building design. And that was the one that really triggered my passion of like, oh, wow, it's not just about energy generation and this energy transition. It's about taking our current stock of buildings and making them, emissions neutral and more energy efficient. So it's this like systems thinking approach where it's like, yes, and, yes, solar, yes, wind, yes, battery storage, but we also need to think about how to integrate those into our infrastructure systems as well. So I will say, explore many different avenues. Get really familiar with the regulations and the policies and the standards in Alberta. That knowledge can help support many different aspects of any kind of job you go into, especially in Alberta, like having a really good grasp on understanding the ASO and the AUC and kind of how all that regulations permittings work. And lastly, another plug for Solar Alberta here. I know throughout my retraining journey, something that was super, super, super valued to me was I joined the board of Solar Alberta. And as a student, that, helped get me connected with so many people in the industry. It kind of helps give you a bit of, additional support because you get to network with people on the board, but then also actively participate in Solar Alberta's events, which is really great. I mean, it's been 2 years since I've been off the board. I was on it for 3 years. So yeah, I mean, here I am back again, helping to support the mission and the cause because it is, I really do believe in Solar Alberta and I'm really passionate about this organization as well. So yeah, getting involved, like even in a volunteer capacity, once again, speaks volumes on a resume to say, I'm so passionate about this that I did it without pay just to kind of like move the mission forward,
Yeah, no, really good points.
And February 29th was the final day for applications, correct?
For board applications,
Yeah, there you go.
We'd love to have them. Right now, I think we had one already, so that was exciting. I get excited every time we get a new applicant. But yeah, it's a very competitive process. I'm not going to lie. We do get a lot of applicants, so it is challenging, but it's definitely worthwhile. And I think throwing your name into the hat is I talked to someone the other day and they were saying, oh, I might not run because I don't know enough people, and they were worried that they had to bring a whole bunch of people to vote for them. Do not worry about that. Nobody on this line, if you want to volunteer on the Solar Alberta board, it's not going to be about how many people you can pull into the AGM. It's not like running to be an MLA. You're going to submit your application. The board that is already elected is going to go through all the applications and they're going to rank them according to who meets our needs the best right now, because we have needs. We need a treasurer. Guess what? Treasurers don't actually have to have solar experience. We absolutely need people from different parts of the province. We need representation. So this board is going to look at a variety of factors. They're going to rank them. They're going to bring a list of recommended candidates to the AGM. So even if you don't have a million friends and you're not the most popular person in the whole world, it is not a popularity contest. Our board recruitment process is about many different factors, and popularity probably least among them. So please don't let that discourage you. We do love it when our board members are well networked and popular. Obviously that helps to promote our events, but I'm not overly worried about that. And I don't think the current board is when they're determining their vetting the candidates. So so please consider it. We have another question here from Jeff. We talked about wage and pay transparency. Can you please expand on that? I can expand on that a bit, but I'd like to open it up to you two first, just to see if you wanted to touch on that and some of the best practices you've seen. This is becoming kind of the new standard. In fact, it's the law in New York. So if you want to post a job in New York, you absolutely have to post the pay range. And that is becoming the new normal. So I think it's a very good question. Emma, do you want to touch on that? And then we'll see what Alicia has to say.
Yeah, so I think there are two elements in there. One is the transparency as far as the pay range you get, depending on the law. I don't think it's a law in Alberta, but it's always a good idea to, if you're definitely constrained within a range, again, it helps you as a screening tool without you having to send drop applicant. They look at the pay range and say whether that's something that they could live with or not. Having, again, a wide range, $25 to $75 an hour is meaningless. You have to be more specific in that if you can. So that's one element of it, again, just complying with law and, again, providing that extra information that's beneficial for applicants. The second one is, again, the pay gap and, again, the gender gap in pay that we have. Again, if you're truly looking at the skill set and the person that has, again, the physical, mental background abilities to perform the job, you pay them the same. Like there's no reason not to, because they'll find out. Yeah, you can't keep it hidden. And then now a person that you've invested, you brought them on, spent months or years training, they realize they're getting severely underpaid to their colleagues doing the same work, or they may be even more qualified. they just leave, and then you have to start over with someone new. So do yourself a service and treat everyone equal, and again, it'll be beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been there, done that, by the way. So thank you for mentioning that, because they will find out and they will be hurt and very offended.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Again, it's a lot of it. Apologies, Alicia. It's a lot of it. Again, it's a gender thing, but I've seen myself again being paid less to again my male counterparts or colleagues. It just again, if for the positions that are equal, you might want to consider paying them equally again to retain that talent and keep them motivated.
And in many ways, it's a humility characteristic. It's not, and it just so happens that a lot of women, have a lot of humility. And so, if you are a humble man, you may also end up being undervalued as well. And so, that's a very good point you make. Alicia, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I think transparency, and as you said, I think that's the way the world is headed. I know I probably wouldn't apply for a job unless there was a minimum, pay range, because, why waste your own time? Why waste the employer's time by applying for a role, expecting a higher thing, and then when they ask you what your wage expectation is, they go, oh wow, we're really far apart. It's like, okay, well, I just took time off of work to interview, or, I spent 2 days working on my resume and my cover letter to apply for this job. So yeah, I think that's really important. I think within teams, like you mentioned, people will talk, it's supposed to be such a taboo subject, but I'm finding more and more people are becoming more bold maybe to speak about their wages. And then I also know if there's a staggered, as an example, if you're training to be an electrician and you're a year 1 electrician versus a year 4 electrician versus a journey person versus a laborer, I think it's actually really important to create that transparency as well within your workforce, because then A, that you have something to work towards, but B, it's been communicated why somebody who's maybe a year 3 electrician isn't making the same as a general laborer or a year 1 electrician. And lastly, with that, I'll go back to the living wage thing. I mean, people that feel they're valued in companies by their pay will stay. I know that for a fact. I've seen that historically in my 20 plus years of work experience. So, make that a consideration. I know like money is tight for everybody right now, including businesses. But even just adding an extra $2 or $3 to somebody's wage could keep keep an employee on for a much longer period of time than, if they find out, oh, well, the living wage is $21 and I'm only making 19. Well, now I feel undervalued. Now I feel like I'm being kind of devalued, right? And then that causes resentment, and then you lose employees. So that would be my final thoughts on that.
No, I appreciate that. And I think I do have one anecdote I'd like to share, because it's really important on this topic, because I never realized how significant this was until I was doing the hiring for a company that was not my own, and I didn't have control over the interview questions, and I didn't have control over the job posting. And they did set me up with a question that said, and what are your expectations for salary? And every one of the fellas I interviewed had an expectation of 60 to 80 thou a year. And I interviewed one gal who had been home with her children a lot. She had incredible experience, was directly related, but she'd been home with her children. She did not know, she'd never talked to anyone else about what they're getting paid these days, and she told me $30,000 a year. And I took that back and I said, we can't do that to her. And they said, oh no, we're going to go with her. And I said, we can't do that. And oh, well, okay, we'll give her 35. Oh, well, I left because I can't do that sort of thing. And I'm not willing to be the person hiring someone at 35,000 a year when their male counterparts are making 60 to 80. And I can see, Ahmad, like that could happen to anyone with humility. That could happen to anyone who had a gap. And that could happen to anyone who's not in those conversations you mentioned, Alicia. Now, APEGA, I understand, they do pay. They actually transparently share with other engineers within their association, what the standards are. So that gives engineers an opportunity every year to say, oh, okay, I can go negotiate this because this is the standard. But that doesn't exist for a lot of careers, and a lot of different folks don't have that luxury. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. It's very important. This is my favorite topic. So as you can tell, I'm just loving this. Thank you for asking. We're going to wrap up with one last section here. We've got, ooh, interesting questions here. Oh, wow. These might be more than we can do today, but we'll get started on it. Hi, thanks for the great webinar. Number one, how would you describe the perfect cover letter? Number two, which information do you usually look for in it? Number three, do you assess the resume first, then the cover letter, or the other way around? So why don't we just go around? I don't think we're going to each be able to answer all three, but maybe pick your favorite question and go for it. And then we can cover them all before the end of the hour. Okay, Ahmad, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think in my mind, in a perfect cover letter, try not to repeat what you have in your resume already. It's there for people to look. It's best to have a very quick introduction of who you are. Again, something that is outside of your resume. What is your understanding of the role, and how you're going to, what is that you bring to essentially fulfill the duties and responsibilities that role is looking at. Also talk about what is your passion. Again, how does that role looks into where you want to be in life or in career down the road. Again, those are all information that your employer looks, again, has nothing to do with your capabilities, but just talks about your personality and how you fit in the organization and sort of team that you're taking.
Thank you. Yeah. How about you, Alicia, on those three questions?
So I always read the cover letter first because I think it helps to give insight and voice to the candidate. So that honestly, I look at the cover letter and then I'll look at the work experience. And sometimes even if it's a really good cover letter, the work experience, as long as they're meeting those minimum requirements that are in the posting, like, oh, okay, if you're looking for somebody that's graduated high school or has a certain certificate in marketing or whatever. But yeah, definitely, I find cover letters are that voice of the person, and that brings a lot of insight. I will also mention a really great practice right now too, either for people looking to apply for jobs or employers looking for new employees, having a professional summary at the top of your resume as well now. So, I saw this on a HR, how to, impress on a resume thing for, I think it was like an Instagram reel or something. And it's, introducing yourself, talking about who you are, and then the thing that you're passionate about. So it's like, my name is Alicia Kudo. I'm a passionate sustainability professional I'm a sustainability professional that's passionate about knowledge sharing, community building, and, renewable energy or something like that. So that'll kind of give you a really quick snapshot as well as to that person's values and mission as well. I'll really wrap up really quick. I'll also say, don't ever discount parents in the hiring process. I know we may have additional responsibilities outside of work. However, parents are really good at time management and trying to get everything fit in scheduling. So if there is somebody that's maybe, been out of the workforce for 5 years because they've been home taking care of their young children, they'll get stuff done. You know what I mean? They tend to know how to time manage pretty well and figure things out, even if they have, extra circumstances to deal with. So that was
no, I appreciate that. And the only last thing I would add is I think that what you look at first will also depend a little bit on the job that's being applied for. Because if it is, for example, if you are hiring a solar installer, it needs to be someone who is either an electrician or willing to become an electrician. And if they won't, they can't legally be an installer in Alberta. So I would probably screen for that, first of all, if it was that position. Because if they really don't want to become an electrician, then I would steer them in a different direction. So that was an interesting one. But for me, because my work is mainly communications based, I will look at the cover letter first, because usually when I'm comparing between applicants, I need to know that they can effectively communicate in an email format. So it really depends a lot on the job, and this has been so insightful. So I just want to thank you both so much. As a board and former board members, you are invaluable, and thank you so much for presenting today and answering all these great questions. Huge shout out to Kubi for sponsoring today, to Lakeland College for sponsoring today, and for, of course, lending us Alicia as well, because I know you've got many different commitments, and to Enbridge for sponsoring the solar show as a whole. Wonderful participation. I'm really glad you folks started populating the Q&A because your questions were excellent. So thank you for coming today. Hope you see you all at the rest of the solar show. We still have 4 sessions left. So I'll see you there, and have a great day. Bye, y'all.